Okay, so you want to own a casino. Picture it. Neon, washing across your name on the marquee. A private elevator up to your own suite. The soft click of chips all night long. Every one of them, in some small way, yours. High rollers nod to you, like you're the house itself. A doorman remembers your name before you've said it. Somewhere below you, a wheel spins. Every spin tilts the math slightly in your direction, night after night, for as long as the doors stay open. It feels like the closest thing to a guaranteed win capitalism ever built. And in a narrow, technical sense, it actually is. Sounds simple. It is not simple. Before a single card is dealt, you need real money and a great deal of patience. Somewhere between $250 million and $1.5 billion. That's just to build the building you're standing in. A quiet regional casino and a Las Vegas mega resort share almost nothing but the word gambling. Yet both get called the same three words: owning a casino. The gap between those numbers is the gap between a modest operator and a landmark. Most new owners underestimate which one their ambitions actually require. The dream sold in movies is always the landmark. The math sold in this video applies to both. That number is not the real cost of entry. Casino construction runs $300 to $550 per square foot. That's roughly double a standard hotel. Reinforced flooring, specialized wiring for thousands of machines, and layered security systems all add cost a normal hotel never needs. Land alone eats 9 to 14% of the total budget. That's before a foundation is even poured. Each hotel room inside a casino resort costs $150,000 to $500,000. The room is never really the product. The room is bait, built to keep a gambler inside your building overnight. A hotel 2 blocks away is a threat, not a competitor for room revenue. It's a leak, letting your best customers gamble somewhere else entirely, and almost none of that money is yours. Casino resorts are financed almost entirely on debt. The collateral is a single-purpose building nobody else particularly wants. Lenders price that risk into every dollar. That risk premium shows up as a higher interest rate, locked in for the entire construction period, long before a single guest ever checks in. The real cost is the piece of paper that lets you legally open the doors. In Nevada, a non-restricted gaming license application costs $7,500. On paper, that number is almost a decoy, printed on the state's own website. Almost nobody actually pays $7,500 for it. Real applicants budget $50,000 to $150,000 in specialized gaming attorneys general. Lawyers get this wrong constantly. Gaming law is its own specialty, closer to securities regulation than to ordinary business law. Mistakes here can delay a license by months. Add $15,000 per key employee for background checks. The bill climbs fast, before a single slot machine has paid out. In New York, a casino license alone runs $25 million. In New Jersey, roughly $400,000. In West Virginia, a smaller market, it still runs $250,000. The approval timeline still stretches 12 to 18 months. The price of the table changes by state, but the table is never cheap and it is never optional. Every state also runs its own separate approval process, on its own separate timeline, with its own separate paperwork. Experience in one jurisdiction rarely shortcuts the next one. This is the part almost nobody accounts for going in. The state is not a landlord. The state is a partner. It has to approve you before you're allowed to lose your own money. Every one of these fees is non-refundable if the state says no. The license fee isn't the cost of the casino. It's the first bet the house makes, on you. And once you're approved, you inherit something the brochure never mentions. Approval feels like the finish line. It is actually the starting gun for a completely different set of obligations. Every state sets its own tax rate on your gross gaming revenue. You don't negotiate it. You simply absorb it. Nevada taxes casinos at roughly 6.75%. Pennsylvania taxes slot revenue at 54%. Not a typo. That gap alone can decide whether a casino chain expands into a state at all. 54%. Off the top. Forever, for as long as your machines run. That single number can make an identical casino profitable in one state. In the next state, structurally underwater, before you've made a single decision. Nobody chooses their tax rate the way they choose a location. The tax rate chooses the location for them, whether they realize it or not. Owners rarely map this out before they sign, and by the time they do, the building is already built. On top of that, regulators expect you to spend 15 to 25% of gross revenue on compliance, reporting, monitoring, responsible gambling programs. None of these line items exist to make you money. They exist so the state can keep verifying it made the right call in licensing you. Most people never think about this part. You are buying a permanent, recurring slice of every dollar that crosses your cage. That's before you've spent a cent keeping the lights on. There's a second inherited trap hiding behind the tax rate: time itself. A non-restricted license can take 8 to 14 months to clear, start to finish. Some interactive gaming permits carry a $500,000 fee just to be considered. Every one of those months, your construction loan keeps accruing interest. That's true whether or not a guest has ever walked through your doors. You inherited a debt clock that started running before you inherited a single paying customer. Regulators expect that clock to be watched by a compliance staff you also have to hire and pay. And even after approval, your vendors need their own licenses too. Each carries a $5,000 minimum application fee. Your entire supply chain inherits the same scrutiny you just survived. From the slot machine servicer to the company printing your chips, even the firm delivering playing cards needs its paperwork in order. There's a third trap, quieter than the first two, insuring a building built to hold millions in cash under one roof. Ordinary commercial insurance was never priced for that risk. Specialized coverage costs more and covers less than owners expect walking in. You inherited a target painted directly onto your own building. The tax rate isn't a cost of doing business. It's the state's cut of every bet collected before you've made one. So where does your money actually come from? Start with the obvious layer, the games themselves. Every game on your floor carries a built-in mathematical edge in your favor. American roulette holds 5.26% of every dollar wagered over time. Blackjack, played well, holds as little as 1 to 2%. Craps can fall even lower for the sharpest bets on the table. Every game is priced differently, and the casino knows exactly which games attract the sharpest players. This is called the house edge. It is not a trick, it is arithmetic. But the number that actually pays your bills isn't the edge. It's the hold, the share of money that stays in your Dropbox after a night of betting. Every casino tracks this number obsessively, floor by floor, table by table, shift by shift. A 5.26% edge can produce a 20% hold. Players don't bet once. They bet the same money over and over, and the edge compounds every time. Read that again. A 5% advantage becomes a 20% take purely through volume. The edge never changed. Only the number of times it was applied against the same money changed. Put a real player behind that math. A blackjack player betting $100 a hand at 60 hands an hour wagers $6,000 an hour. Against a modest 2% edge, that generates roughly $120 an hour in expected win. That's true whether the player wins or loses that night. Multiply one player by a full floor of tables and thousands of slot machines, all running the same math at once. No individual outcome matters to the casino at all. Only the aggregate does. That's slots and tables. But slots alone usually generate more raw revenue than every table game combined. A slot machine never gets tired, never misdeals, and never needs a break. It runs the same programmed edge, spin after spin, for as long as it's plugged in. No dealer alive can match that pace, or that consistency. There's also a layer built entirely on other people's games. Sportsbooks price both sides of a bet, so the numbers don't perfectly balance. A margin called the VIG. This works whether the favored team wins or loses, because the house never actually bets on the outcome. Parlays push that margin even higher, since hitting every leg gets harder as the payout barely rises. Poker tables work differently. Players compete against each other, not the house. So the house takes a rake instead, a small cut of every pot, usually capped at a fixed amount. None of these mechanisms depend on the house ever picking a winner. They only depend on volume and on the game continuing, hand after hand. The next layer is stranger. You give money back, on purpose, to your best customers. It's called a comp. It's calculated from theoretical loss. That's an estimate of what a player is mathematically expected to lose, based on average bet and hours played. Most operators return 10 to 15% of that projected loss as free rooms and shows. At the high end, resorts return 30 to 40% of a whale's theoretical loss in perks. It feels generous. It is not generous. It's retention math with better lighting. A free room costs the casino almost nothing to provide on an off night. A free room keeps a gambler on property instead of walking across the street to a competitor. The loyalty card in a gambler's wallet exists for one purpose: to let the casino calculate theoretical loss in real time. Every comp is really a small, calculated reinvestment against a larger, statistically certain return. The math runs quietly behind every friendly gesture the floor makes toward you. Then, the layer almost nobody pictures. The building itself now makes more from people who never touch a chip. Modern integrated resorts pull 40 to 50% of total revenue from hotel rooms, restaurants, and shows. Not gambling. Food and beverage alone contributes 15 to 20% of gross revenue, at healthy margins. Entertainment pushes this further. Major venues report revenue averaging $150 to $300 per visitor. VIP services alone can carry margins of 40 to 50%. None of it requires a single card to be dealt. The gambling floor built the brand. The rest of the resort now quietly pays the bills. Walk through a modern casino resort, and you might spend an entire evening without ever placing a bet. The building still profits handsomely from you. The house edge isn't a trick, It's a percentage point that never sleeps. Here is where it gets interesting. All of that math is real. It is also, brutally, slow. The revenue layers above only prove the house wins eventually. They don't prove the house survives every week along the way. Now count the bleed that never stops. Whether or not a guest walks through your doors tonight, you are running a building 24 hours a day. You need staff to cover a hotel, a casino floor, and several restaurants at once. Dealers, pit bosses, housekeeping, valets, and cage cashiers all need to be on shift simultaneously. Every single day of the year, including holidays, you are ensuring a facility holding enormous quantities of cash under one roof. That's a target no ordinary retail business has to plan around. You are maintaining gaming technology that ages out of relevance within a handful of years. Replacing it is never optional if you want to stay competitive. Every comped room and comped meal is revenue you never actually collected. It sits on your books as a cost, agreed to before you knew who'd walk in tonight. Add the electricity bill for a building that never turns its lights off. Add a laundry operation the size of a small hotel chain. Add a compliance department whose entire job generates no revenue at all. Add surveillance. Cameras covering nearly every square foot, staffed around the clock, because regulators require it. Add a security team large enough to patrol a small neighborhood every single night. Add the marketing spend to keep a loyalty database fed, most of which never turns a profit. Add the cost of constantly refreshing table felt, carpet, and signage. A tired-looking floor quietly signals a tired-looking business. None of these costs pause when the floor goes quiet. They run at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday, exactly as they run on Saturday night. Established casinos absorb these costs every year and still turn a profit. The house edge, given enough time, always wins the argument. The comp isn't a gift, it's rent, paid back to you, out of your own house edge. Now here is the mechanism that actually kills owners, and it is not bad luck. It is a mismatch, built directly into the math you just learned. Nobody builds a casino expecting to fail. The mismatch doesn't announce itself until the bill comes due. A billion-dollar resort is financed almost entirely on debt, often high-interest debt. Banks see gambling as a volatile industry. The house edge is real, but it's a slow, grinding advantage. It needs years of steady volume to actually service that debt. Licensing alone can take 8 to 14 months before your first legal dollar arrives. Interest accrues on your construction loan the entire time. Industry-wide, major casino resorts have carried debt loads from $675 million to well over $1 billion, financed at rates far above what a stable business would ever get. That debt doesn't ask permission to compound. It runs on a fixed schedule. No house edge, however real, can outpace it in a single bad quarter. One soft season, one missed bond payment. A business with a guaranteed long-run advantage becomes insolvent in the short run. Lenders don't care that the math eventually works out. They care whether the payment clears on the date it's due. This is where it gets interesting. The house edge was never designed to save the owner. It was only ever designed to beat the player. Think about the two clocks running side by side. The house edge is a statistical clock. It only becomes reliable after thousands of individual bets, smoothing out over months and years. Your loan is a calendar clock. It carries a fixed payment due on a fixed date. A casino can be destined to win in the long run and still miss a bond payment next quarter. The long run and the due date are not the same run. This is exactly the gap that swallows new operators. They price the business off the house edge. They finance it off a calendar that doesn't care about averages. And here is the trap almost nobody sees coming. The house edge isn't the owner's safety net. It's too slow to save you from the debt that built the house. So why does every casino floor feel disorienting in exactly the same way? Walk into almost any large casino and the pattern repeats. No straight path back to the entrance, no visible clock, no glimpse of daylight. A slot machine within arm's reach no matter where you turn. That's not an accident of interior design. It's a documented business model. In the 1960s, a man named Bill Friedman ran two struggling Las Vegas Strip properties, the Castaways and the Silver Slipper. He turned both into some of the highest profit per square foot casinos in the city. Neither property was glamorous. Both were considered second-tier addresses on the Strip before he touched them. He did it by studying 80 separate Nevada casinos over 2 decades. He cataloged which physical layouts kept people gambling the longest. The result was a 630-page textbook designing casinos to dominate the competition. It distilled 13 design principles. Maze-like floor layouts instead of long, straight aisles, so you always turn one more corner before leaving. Low ceilings throughout the gaming floor, because Friedman believed height made players feel exposed. Gaming equipment placed at every entrance, so the decision to gamble is made before you've decided anything. Multiple distinct gambling zones, so the environment never gets stale enough to prompt you to leave. And the detail people whisper about at parties, no clocks on the gaming floor, no windows to the outside world either. There's nothing in your field of view to remind you what time it is. This is legal. This is normal. Nobody hides these techniques. They're published in a textbook, taught in hospitality programs, and applied openly because none of it requires deception to work. Friedman's rules were not an urban myth. They were codified, tested across 80 properties, and adopted as an industry standard for decades. Friedman's other principles read like a checklist for disorientation, done politely, vacant, open entrances that pull you in without a decision point, raised landings so a visitor can scan the whole floor at once, bright signage and jackpot displays, always pulling the eye toward one more machine. Even the carpet patterns were chosen deliberately, busy enough to discourage anyone from looking down and noticing the time. He later wrote about the era that shaped his thinking. He chronicled the Prohibition-era gangs who built most of the earliest Las Vegas Strip resorts. From the Flamingo in 1946 through Caesar's Palace 2 decades later, the maze wasn't invented by an architect chasing elegance. It was refined by operators who understood exactly how long a customer could be kept from leaving. Here is where it gets interesting. Some resorts, most famously Bellagio, eventually reversed this playbook entirely. Roger Thomas, designing Bellagio for Steve Wynn, argued the opposite. He believed people gamble longer when they feel wealthy and relaxed, not lost and anxious. So he raised the ceilings and let sunlight in through skylights. He hung antique clocks on the walls, as decoration instead of information. Both philosophies were built by studying real players inside real buildings. Both, in their own resorts, produced some of the highest revenue per square foot in the industry. Both approaches, somehow, still work. The missing clock isn't an oversight, it's the business model, poured directly into the architecture. But design this careful doesn't guarantee survival. The clearest proof sits on the Atlantic City boardwalk. In April of 2012, a resort called Revel opened as the tallest building in the city, 1,400 rooms, built at a cost of $2.4 billion. From certain floors, guests could see the entire Atlantic City skyline spread out below them. It was designed to lure a different customer entirely, Wall Street traders and hedge fund managers, not the bus tours filling every other casino on the boardwalk. It was even the only smoke-free casino in Atlantic City, a bet on a more upscale future for the whole industry. Investors saw a boardwalk full of aging buildings and a market ready for something new. Revel was supposed to be that something new. Every design choice pointed at prestige, fine dining over buffet lines, nightclubs over bingo halls. Nothing about the property was accidental, and nothing about it was cheap either. In its very first month, Revel's casino floor won $13 million. That ranked it near the bottom of Atlantic City's 12 competing casinos. That's where it would stay for its entire existence. The Wall Street crowd it was built around never fully materialized, and the bus tour customers filling every neighboring casino weren't the audience Revel wanted. A $2.4 billion building had priced out the exact customer base next door. That's in a market already shrinking, as neighboring states legalized their own casinos. Within a year, Revel filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It listed $1.1 billion in assets against $1.5 billion in liabilities. The restructuring wiped out 82% of its debt. It still left the company owing $272 million. It wasn't enough. Even a debt cut that steep couldn't fix a property that had never found its promised customer. Revel filed for bankruptcy a second time. It closed permanently on September 2nd, 2014. That's just over 2 years after its celebrated opening night. What followed was a bidding war that told its own story. A firm agreed to buy the shuttered tower for $110 million. It then walked away over a dispute involving Revel's own power plant. A Florida developer stepped in, agreed to $95 million, then missed his own deadline to close. In 2016, the building finally sold in bankruptcy court. The price was $82 million. Read that again. A $2.4 billion resort sold for $82 million. Roughly 3 cents on every dollar it cost to build. Every dollar of design, every architectural bet on prestige, sold off at a fraction of its cost. Revel's failure wasn't bad luck. It was $2.4 billion in construction debt, sitting on top of a hold percentage that was never fast enough to catch it. This is where it all connects. It's worth walking back through every room you just toured. Nothing you saw was accidental, and nothing was hidden either. The license was never just a formality. It was the state agreeing to take a permanent cut of everything you'll ever earn. The tax rate was never a line item. It was a second permanent partner nobody introduced you to. The revenue layers were never just games, tables, and rooms. They were a stack of separate machines, all running the same math in your favor at once. The house edge was never a trick. It was the only genuinely reliable machine in the entire building, and even it was too slow to outrun the debt built around it. The missing clocks and the maze-like floors were never an accident. They were an engineering decision, tested across 80 casinos and written down as law, a blueprint one man spent 20 years assembling, and Revel proves the final, quietest truth. You can get every single piece right, the location, the design, the math, the ambition, and still lose. 1,400 rooms, a smoke-free promise, a tower built to outglamour every neighbor on the boardwalk. None of it mattered once the calendar clock outran the statistical one. That's the part the brochure never shows you. The math can be perfect, and the timing can still kill you. A casino was never actually a room full of games. It was a license, a tax rate, a house edge, a debt schedule, and a floor plan, all engineered by different people across different decades, pointing in exactly the same direction. None of them ever needed to speak to each other. The math simply pointed the same way, every time. A casino is a machine engineered to make you forget how much time you've spent inside it, and how much money. You didn't buy a casino, you bought the clock nobody's allowed to check.